What's up, and welcome back to Setting the Edge, Week 16 edition. We're going to break down Fanduel and Draftkings for you guys for this week's NFL games. We're also going to do a little mock shell lineup along the way to kind of keep track of what our thoughts are in our process. We're building a lineup this week and how we kind of think things are going to fall. So without further ado, I'm always here with my co-host, the great Zambino. Ryan, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well. Looking to get a nice little chunk of change ready for the holidays this weekend. Games happening on Saturday instead of Sunday, mixing it up. I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. It shakes it up a bit for us. And there's a shit ton of basketball games on Sunday, so I'm pretty hyped about that. So I like how they did balance this out for us this weekend, especially in DFS purposes. And if I do want any of our listeners to have a little nugget of information for NBA on Sunday, take all of the unders. Just bet the unders blindly. You're gonna go at worst 3-2. I promise. I've gone 5-0. Like I went 5-0 last year on it. It was awesome. Um, all right, so let's start at the top here, at the quarterback position. Highlighted, of course, by Tom Brady hosting the New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers hosting Minnesota Vikings, Drew Brees, Superdome, holding the Tampa Bay Bucks coming in, and then Andrew Luck at Oakland. Those are like the big pricey guys, and then followed by Rivers and Matt Ryan. I guess you can pay up for. When you've done your lineup construction this week, what are you looking to do? Are you looking to pay up at quarterback for some of these guys, especially a Drew Brees, who seems going to be the chalk of the week, hosting Tampa Bay interconference game, but we just know how that goes. Tampa Bay is not the greatest defensively, and Drew Brees just lights it up at home. You got Matt Ryan going out to Carolina. Carolina's pretty much been absolutely crap all year. They've been getting torched on the deep ball. We expect that Julio Jones is going to be back for Matt Ryan too. That game has a high over under as well. Rodgers has just been carrying the Packers like relentlessly, and he's just been absolutely incredible. Brady, you know what he's going to do against the Jets, but my question is whether or not he actually plays a full game if it gets really bad. So what are you looking at here up top?
Up top, I like all of these guys have a lot to boding well for them. Like every single one of the guys at the top, it seems has like a plus matchup. You could in a vacuum, you could play any of these guys on any slate. Like if the other matchups weren't around it, but when you have Tom Brady playing against New York, against the Jets, who have probably the worst defense in football right now, along with Aaron Rodgers carrying his team $400 cheaper, along with Drew Brees at home for $100 cheaper than Rodgers. You got Luck in a high over-under against Oakland. You got Rivers playing against arguably the worst defense. You got Ryan in a high over-under. You got Carr in a high over-under. And you have Winston in a high over-under. Like every single one of those guys have a lot going for them. But when I look throughout this position, I think that, honestly, I don't say this very often anymore. I used to say it a lot, but I think quarterback is a place where I'm going to be saving money this week and looking at Matt Barkley at 6.3 on DraftKings and 5K on or 6.3 on FanDuel and 5K on DraftKings. He's a guy who I'm looking at as a definite spot. I could save a lot of money, maybe fade some of the chalk. I'm not sure. Like you said, Drew Brees will probably be the chalk play. People just banking on Drew Brees at home. I had the cooler effect last time I went with that. I think I played him at home against Detroit, and he laid a complete dud for me. So with that being the chalk, I think I might fade the chalk this week and go with Matt Barkley. Might be one of the higher owned quarterbacks, but not the highest owned at 6.3 on FanDuel and 5K on DraftKings. What do you think about that? Where do you want to go?
Well, see, here's the thing. I don't think he's going to be the highest quarterback because there's another guy at 6.3K on FanDuel that I really like, and it's Mr. Tom fucking Savage, Houston quarterback now. We saw him come into the game and instantly just started looking a million times better than Brock Osweiler did. He's using DeAndre Hopkins more than we saw Brock Osweiler do this entire year. And I think the Bengals are one of the worst defenses defensively against the pass. And they have nothing to play for. And Houston technically does have something to play for still, unbelievably. So I don't know. At the same price, it's a toss-up for me because I think Chicago will probably run the ball more against the worst one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL and Washington Redskins at home. Whereas Cincinnati's a little better up front, and they're going to let Tom Savage let it rip a bit.
Yeah, that makes a
Well,
lot
I
of
think
sense.
both are.
The
Yeah, I
game
think
flow
both of
definitely
them you
goes
can
well.
use. I think
Yeah,
you can use
like
both of them.
honestly,
Yeah.
yeah, honestly, either one of them, like paying down for between Savage and Barkley, it's pretty even. Like you said, at the end of the day, I think it might come down to like the game flow that you mentioned. But like still, if we look at like Savage last week, he slung the ball around God's creation. He's 23 for 36, 260, but he still didn't like find his way into the end zone, which I guess like he was able to get the job done and get him back and get a win. Uh, Matt Barkley's not really playing for anything. He's found the end zone though. Like that's what like I guess caught my eye when I was looking throughout it. He hasn't been like phenomenal by any stretch of the imagination, but like if you're a game log watcher and you see Matt Barkley with his 22 followed by 7.98, that 7.98 was in a like that snow induced like shit game from that situation. Tom Savage at home though, yeah, you bring up a good point. They're playing for something Cincinnati isn't at home in a dome. No weather chance really. I'm good with letting or plugging and playing Savage into the DraftKings lineup. I think over or into the Fanduel lineup. I think over on DraftKings, like we could balance this out. Go Savage in one and Barkley on the other. What do you think of that?
And they're the same on both sides, so it really makes no difference. So I say let's let it rip for that. I guess what you could say to trump our argument is the 47.5 total in the Bears game versus the 43.5 total in the Texans game, and the Bears being dogged at 3 points in this game could lead to a little more passing potentially. But I just think the Redskins front seven is so bad you can just run on them all day. I don't think it'll make a difference. But yeah, let's do Savage and FanDuel one, and then we'll do Barkley in the DraftKings one. Yeah, just to run through quarterback a little bit more. Two guys I'm completely off this week. I'm going to call them my fades are actually Kirk Cousins and Marcus Mariota. Kirk Cousins in Chicago. Chicago's given up like the fifth least amount of points to opposing quarterbacks the last like 4 weeks. Meanwhile, Jacksonville is decent pass defense. They just fired their head coach, so maybe they're going to try something completely different this week and stop Mariota. Inter-conference game, not as good, and Mariota on the road. His price point is 7.8. I think it's a little ridiculous, honestly. You look at the last two games, 7 points and 6 points, albeit it was against Denver and at Kansas City. I don't think Marcus Mariota is going to be trending in the right direction anytime soon. So those are my two fades. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? I guess like a Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, Derek Carr kind of plays. Jameis Winston, Cam Newton a little bit.
I love all those guys. Like if I'm a multi-entry kind of guy, I'm probably going to have about equal exposure to everybody. I probably would go lower exposure on Brady because of his big-time blowout risk. Not really sure what's going to go down there. But then I'll have probably equal exposure to everybody in the price range of 8.6 down to 8.1, including all the guys I mentioned earlier. And then I'd also probably have a little increased exposure to Colin Kaepernick in tournaments. I think I'm going to build some tournament lineups this week more than I normally would, and I'll probably have quite a bit of Kaepernick exposure at going into LA. It's not really a true road game. It's San Francisco to LA. LA coming off the firing of their coach definitely didn't show us anything last week to say that this is a new football team now. The guy absolutely trounced. I think that Kaepernick's ceiling is pretty high with his ability to like add to his. If he throws for 2 touchdowns and then rushes for 70 yards, then he's going to give you a 20-point day.
Yeah, I hear that. I was kind of off Kaepernick until now just because I know the LA defense is a little bit good and I saw their price. I guess my favorite GPP play at quarterback would probably going to be I'm going to roll with Derek Carr. They got Indy coming into town. I don't think Indy's very good defensively, honestly. And it's only a matter of time before Derek Carr and Amari Cooper get connected on a long touchdown pass and things they could do this week. Jameis is an obvious one, and another one that might go a little under the radar because he's punched in right between everyone above 8K, and then the cheaper guys. Cam Newton at 7.9. Atlanta has literally given up the most points to quarterbacks like all year this year, and albeit Carolina's a dead team walk in here, but it is a rivalry game technically, so they don't like each other that much. Interconference games, they typically do worse. But if you're Atlanta and this is a game, they should probably take. But like Carolina has nothing better to do than to just ruin Atlanta's day. So I guess Cam Newton could lead the charge at that 7.9. But let's move on over to the running back position here. Highlighted by LaShawn McCoy on top of things, 9.1 on FanDuel, and David Johnson. Melvin Gordon, questionable with the hip, probably is not going to play. And then it's, we go DeMarco Murray, Todd Gurley, who's got potentially one of the best matchups of the week, but, we'll talk about that in a bit. It's incredible. Devontae Freeman, and then the lather all the way down. Matt Forte is probably going to be out. Adrian Peterson is taking it day by day right now. No other super major injuries to really take a note at. Ty Montgomery's pretty much taken over the Packers running back role. I'm really pissed I missed out on that last week, to be honest with you, man. I saw that and I was like, damn, it's a freezing ass game. They're just gonna let this guy, run the ball a bunch. But you know what? It's not what ended up happening in my lineup. So I guess my favorite play at the top, you kind of just get like LaShawn McCoy in your lineup. I'm not really a big fan of David Johnson being at Seattle, albeit David Johnson is the entire offense. So, I mean, I'm a fan of, paying up for McCoy, bringing in Miami, whose defense is starting to crumble a little bit, rather than paying for David Johnson. What are your thoughts here?
On DraftKings, I think trying to jam in David Johnson with LaShawn McCoy, that just gives you such like a high floor, regardless of like the matchup. David Johnson's kind of, well, not even kind of, he's just proven throughout the year that he doesn't care about matchups. Like, you can give him whatever matchup you want, and the worst he's going to give you is 15.4 point floor, and that's on a day where he lost a fumble. So that's a 17.4 point floor if he doesn't fumble that ball. Like last week, he had 12 carries, found the end zone twice, and finished with 27. He played Seattle earlier in the year. He ran for 3.4 yards a carry in a game that didn't score a single touchdown and scored 28.1. Like, his floor, when you throw in the targets and everything, is just so high that I think if looking throughout the lineup, if starting building, if on DraftKings, like for the shell lineup, we start with Barkley, McCoy, Johnson, and then go through the rest looking for the value that we can get. And if we're able to find the value to fit those two in, then I would do it every single time. On DraftKings, or on FanDuel rather, LaShawn McCoy is my favorite running back play of the slate. He's just, like, he started off the season not really on many people's radar. He's probably a value, like a sleeper pick in most every single season-long league. He outperformed pretty much everybody's expectations, probably except for himself. I haven't rostered him too many times this season. I rostered him last week in a week I didn't really play very much. I just played our one survivor that, with the help of our boy Dave Harmer, it got us into the final leg of that survivor with our EPL help. Looking at his game logs, I mean, even when he's not getting the touchdowns, he's still putting up big numbers every game except for really Seattle. Got hurt against Miami and got hurt against Cincinnati. So those are the two games where he was really down. At 9.1, when we have our value plugged in at quarterback, I think we can afford to plug in LaShawn McCoy at that first running back spot. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you at that. Miami, according to the Football Outsiders, is one of the worst, weighted DVOA run defenses. And, the Bills have been, top one, top three run team this entire year. I think you just got to plug them into your lineup. That's pretty much their entire offense, really. Tyrod had an okay game last week, against the Browns. But I think with the weather potentially always being shitty up in Buffalo, you just plug LaShawn McCoy right into your lineup. Now, on FanDuel, I don't know if I want to play David Johnson in my cash lineup.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was like pretty much a DK play because of his full point PPR stuff.
Yeah, the full point PPR is just absolutely ridiculous. So, and we can get those two into the lineup. And they're about the same price pretty much. But the two guys I really want to get into my lineups this week at the running back position is Jay Ajayi, who is my favorite play on the board this week. And then I like Jordan Howard a little bit less, maybe about 10% less. If I had to make 100 lineups and I could only have one of the other on the two, it's Jay Ajayi and 70%, and then Jordan Howard in 30 of them. If I do it that way, but those two guys I just absolutely in love with this week. Jay Ajayi's price has gone all the way down, and now he's albeit he is on the road. Matt Moore is taking over at quarterback. We saw him touch the ball 19 times, but it was against the Jets, and no one runs very well against the Jets on a consistent basis. And we see what he did against Buffalo earlier this season. He ran for 214 yards, 28 touches. So, I mean, I think he might be able to punch in not one, but 2 touchdowns for us, get around, 20 carries, maybe more, maybe, and at least get us around 75 yards. So I think he's as good as it gets at 6.7. What is he on? He's
On
5.6 on,
DK.
I like that, 5.6 on DK. Not a bad price.
Yeah.
He's not seeing the targets really, but there's been spikes where he's gotten 4 to 6 targets before. Run through some other running backs you like here, I guess in that mid range, and then I will talk about like the punt plays if there is. I got one up my sleeve, but that's about it.
Just like talking about Jay Ajayi a little bit more. Like a couple weeks ago, probably 4 weeks ago now, when he was facing San Francisco, and I rostered him, and pretty much all week you were telling me that you weren't very high on him because of, like, amongst other things, the injuries to the offensive line issues, kind of were talking you off of him. Like in a game where he hasn't scored a touchdown, he hasn't scored over 11 points. I don't think yet this season, and so like I think that's a really touchdown dependent play. And then like just looking at Pro Football Focus's like player grades, looking throughout their offensive line, they're struggling like to fill in the spots with losing Marquise Pouncey and their plethora of talent. They got Brandon Albert at 43.5. Then they got Tunsil at 69.2, Urbic at 62.8, Bushrod at 41.8, and then their best offensive lineman on the right edge, I believe it's Juwan James. Yeah, Juwan James at 76.7. So like I think that's my main reason why I'm probably a little bit more cautious on him than you are. One of my favorite guys in this price range is also Latavius Murray going against Indianapolis. He is snap share or his snap counts. They were consistently up around the 70% range. Last week he played 50% in a game where he got 13 for 81, but did fumble 2 times, so that brought down his production quite a bit. But if we look throughout his like game logs and his matchups and everything else, you can see that when he's getting his 20 carries or 18 carries, he's giving you really, really good production. I think, honestly, looking at this, I think in every single game where he's gotten 18 carries, he's put up at least 16.3 fantasy points. And then in his recent form, he's got his 13 for 81 last week, which wasn't very good. Then against Kansas City, he had 22 for 103 and a score. Buffalo, he had 20 for 82 and 2 scores. Carolina, 19 for 45 and a score. And then Houston was his worst performance lately with 12 for 33 in that Mexico City game where like pretty much everybody's production was a little bit down. That was just a funky game all around with lasers on the field and everything. I like Latavius Murray. Yeah, I like Latavius Murray in this price range as well. Probably matching him up against Jordan Howard when I'm looking at it. Probably I'd go with Jordan Howard because he has similar production and a better matchup and a higher snap share. I guess one guy who I might go with as kind of a punt, not really. He's not too low priced, but he's not one of the top price guys. Mark Ingram has a great matchup, but then you don't know if he's going to get those red zone carries because they took them away from him last week with Tim Hightower. He's 1 touchdown away from an incentive in his contract, and Lord knows those dickhead GMs, they'll call down to a head coach and, hey, he's 1 touchdown away from me having to pay him. Can you get that other guy in the game? And they'll do it every single time, unless he's Bruce Arians, who's just the realest coach out there. I guess those are really the main guys who I'm looking at to fill the second running back position. Where are you looking?
Yeah, I think Jordan Howard could be the highest point per dollar play at the running back position. Another guy, I'm going to go to my punt play of the week, honestly. It's TJ Yeldon. Yeah, it's a kind of a disgusting play, but, hear me out on this. I think he's in a good spot against the Titans, team who's not very good. But he's seen a ridiculous amount of targets the last 2 weeks. 3 weeks, actually. He saw 7 targets against Houston. He saw 9 targets against Minnesota. And he saw 7 against Denver, which has been absolutely awesome to his floor, both Fanduel and DraftKings alone. I like this play a lot. To be honest with you, I think that's going to be my, I'm going to toss him in my GPP teams. He's 5.2. He hasn't really found the end zone in a little while, but I think he might be able to sniff out this week. He's even getting a decent amount of rushing attempts too. Not 8 last week, but that game was just kind of disgusting. But he saw 17 against Minnesota, 14 against Denver. Pair that up with the targets. I think he's a solid GPP play that not many people are going to be on. So what are the other plays I'm looking at here? I don't hate Doug Martin either as another GPP play to pivot away from everyone using the guys in the passing attack in this course light of DFS NFL wise. But Doug Martin's been super disappointing. It's hard to judge him off the injury and everything, but this is just kind of like a gut call of the week. I like Doug Martin. I'll get to Doug Baldwin in a bit. Dougie Martin to potentially find the red zone. If they're in the red zone, he can get to the end zone. Not really used much in the passing game, which kind of sucks. His max we saw is maybe like 4 targets, 5 targets, but he hasn't shown that consistently. And the Saints aren't very good against the run, so maybe Jameis switches it up a little bit, lets Doug Martin do a little damage, but that's gonna be him and Yeldon and be my favorite GPP plays of the week. So we're gonna punch in with McCoy and Ajayi on Fanduel, and then on DraftKings we're gonna do David Johnson and McCoy. Potentially we'll talk about the flex and pivoting around those guys as we go through the wide receiver position, which we're gonna jump to right now. Led off by Mike Evans, Julio Jones, Jordy Nelson, T.Y. Hilton. Out of those guys, I think I like T.Y. Hilton the most in a non-conference game, non-division game rather, against Oakland, a team that's we've targeted all year, again in the passing game. Andrew Luck has just got to get the ball to him. For them to be successful, I think he's been on fire, and I think he shall continue to. You can't look at last game, really. That was just an absolute beatdown in Minnesota, and Minnesota's technically like a pretty good defense, but I hate playing Mike Evans in all 6 of his catches. More of a GPP play for me, and especially if we're spending up a bit, especially on DraftKings in our lineups. I don't think I'm going to be paying significantly high up for wide receivers. Is that kind of how the cash lineup build has been for you thus far?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of chalk on some mid to low priced guys. Example being like DeAndre Hopkins. If we stack him with Tom Savage, everybody saw those insane target shares for DeAndre Hopkins last week. I think everybody's going to invest fully in that, and I'm not going to lie, I'm investing in that quite a bit right now. I like his price range on both sites kind of bodes well for the way the roster build around it is going for me. Looking on DK, especially with that full point PPR, him getting 17 targets last week from his quarterback definitely boosts my confidence quite a bit. And one thing that I talked about a little bit preseason when going into fantasy football drafts and such, his target share numbers last year were incredibly high in part due to the fact that when you have a backup quarterback coming in, he's just going to go to his safety blanket as many times as he can. And you can see that a backup quarterback came in and went to a safety blanket. In this case, he's the safety blanket as the best player on the field almost every time he steps on the field. And he got 17 targets, and he did it last year. And everybody coming into the season who projected both Lamar Miller and DeAndre Hopkins to be first-round picks, it was kind of you can't have your cake and eat it too thing, where you can't have both Lamar Miller. I might have said Lamar Jackson.
You Lamar Miller. Usually say it, but you didn't this time.
Yeah. Lamar Miller coming in and he's going to get his boosted touches theoretically from what he was getting in Miami. And he came in and he didn't really. And then everybody was saying, DeAndre Hopkins with a better quarterback throwing to him is going to have his numbers boosted. There just isn't that much offense to go around when you're having, in hindsight, a mediocre quarterback playing for you. So I think DeAndre Hopkins is probably my favorite point per dollar play at wide receiver this week. The 6.6 range on FanDuel, and then 5.2 on DK. I think 5.2 is way too low for me to pass that up. So on the DK lineup, I think I'm going to plug that in right away.
So you're not afraid of, Dre Kilpatrick and Adam Jones defense at all? Like that? That's not a significant scare to you?
No, not really. Watching Dre Kirkpatrick last week, he got called for 2 straight pass interference calls where he was just blatantly beat and didn't want to give up a touchdown, so he just yanked him down. Just things like that aren't really enough to scare me off. If we look at just the pure matchup sheet, he has an advantage against every single Cincinnati wide receiver. DeAndre Hopkins does, or Cincinnati defender. Not a sizable one compared to the rest of the slate, but he still has an advantage. So I'm comfortable with DeAndre Hopkins and his 1 million targets getting. If he gets into the end zone, then that's game over. He's scoring 20 this week.
Yep. As high as I am on Tom Savage this week being a nice floor play this week and free up some value. I don't think I want DeAndre Hopkins in that specific lineup, but let's put him in the DraftKings one because I don't like loading up my my cash game team with multiple guys that are reliant on each other in a cash game. It's it's not. I'm not a huge fan of it.
Because then
I've done it too many times though.
I've done it too many times. Like, your entire lineup busts. Like that.
I'll raise my hand. Like I'm a hypocrite about it. I'll do it sometimes and it's bad, but I really try not to do it. I don't feel as comfortable. I've been burned, by Carr, Cooper multiple times. So
yeah,
I think I even had Carr, Cooper and Crabtree, but like that paid off. But it was a weird week.
Like it's just a thing where in cash, it's not like the optimal or safe play to have like so much invested into one game where, like, say a game, like typically when you stack that type of game, it's like a 48, 49 over under. And if that game goes significantly under, if it sits around like 30, then your entire lineup is busted from one game going wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you on in the same bandwagon as me here, is feeling that T.Y. Hilton is maybe the best cash wide receiver play this week, in that upper echelon area? So if we're going to build the Fanduel one right now.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes down to it, like if I'm looking at Mike Evans versus T.Y. Hilton, honestly, I might flip a coin in this situation. Like if at the end we have enough when we go through every position and we don't want to really, like if we plug in like a minimum price kicker and like an average defense and we have a ton to pay up. Honestly,
I'm already like a little ahead of that. We got money to pay up. We're gonna have money to pay up.
So like what kicker and defense do you have plugged in so I can just get the same plugged in for like a rough idea of how much?
I got the Pats and Vinatieri in right now, and I'm not even a guy that ever pays up for kicker. I usually like spending 4.5. So we can honestly just plug in a 4.5 kicker. Let's roll with someone in a nice high over under here.
Let's roll Aguayo, just indoor. He's been surprisingly a lot better lately.
Yeah, I was gonna say Aguayo or Josh Lambo, two guys like on the road where there could be a lot of scoring and stuff. So
yeah, it doesn't. They're the same price, so it doesn't really matter.
Interesting.
So yeah,
we've got Aguayo. So I got extra room here. So
yeah. So if we go with
spend up.
Yeah, if we go with T.Y. Hilton at 7.6, he has a great matchup. He's in a high over under. He's going east to west coast. That's not something that throws you off. The thing that throws or that could worry you is when somebody's going west to east coast and then playing at 1 o'clock where like their internal body clock's at like 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock rather. Yeah, I like T.Y. Hilton a lot. Let me check out his matchup real quick. Looks like he's getting TJ Carey.
I'm not concerned against the and that's like the hardest matchup of them all, and he's not going to see him all complete the entire time. He's only he's in the slot mostly, so but he's not in the slot against Sean Smith and David Amerson or just they're good matchups, but like they just get
and it's such a high over under that they're going to have to sling the ball around. They're going to have to like T.Y. Hilton is undoubtedly Andrew Luck's favorite target, and now people are starting to see that like the touchdown dependent guy in Dante Moncrief is not a legitimate fantasy option at the end of the day. Like, yeah, he was that guy who you could just be like, all right, yeah, he's scoring a touchdown every single week, and then he didn't score a touchdown last week and didn't score a single point.
Exactly. If he can just get us,
I don't like guys who
like 13 points.
Yeah, I don't like a guy like I'm personally not a fan of in a cash lineup ever rostering a guy who I'm saying he has to score a touchdown for me to be successful. Like in cash lineups, you kind of want to build around the notion that if this guy doesn't get in the end zone, am I still going to be able to win my lineup? And if you're putting Dante Moncrief in there, the answer is no. If you're putting T.Y. Hilton in there, the answer is yeah, I couldn't still win because he's going to get a massive amount of targets. And then if he doesn't get in the end zone, he can do what he did against New York and go 9 for 146 and 19 points. So yeah, I like T.Y. Hilton a lot for that first wide receiver spot.
Yeah, all right. So I'm cool with that. Like, I'm just not, comfortable with Mike Evans and his, 6 catches a game. And it's not like I'm really, can go. He's the number one guy on the main slate in terms of, raw points. According to a couple of like the projections that I'm looking at here. And when you look at like point per dollar, well, I guess he's second to Mike Evans, but they got like the same exact floor, which is great, which I really like. So, and I guess in terms of point per dollar plays, he's third, and T.Y. Hilton is third. So, just really great for the lineup all the way through. Now here comes the question: we could end up having to we can end up spending up a little bit more at tight end, get off, make America great again. But I love these mid, receivers. I'm going to start with one. I like Doug Baldwin a lot, and a great matchup against Arizona, who I don't think people. It might not be great, but I think it's a good matchup, and I think Seattle has this team dead, and Arizona's done. They're dying apart. My favorite play is Michael Thomas. To get a little piece of that New Orleans Tampa Bay game. Vernon Hargreaves III, is one of the worst cornerbacks in the entire NFL, and New Orleans. He's going to see a lot of Michael Thomas this week, and that is not good for Tampa Bay. Apparently, Hargreaves has given up like some of the most fantasy points in this entire year. I saw someone tweet about that.
He's undersized too in this matchup. Like he's giving up 5 inches.
Yeah, exactly. Michael Thomas is Breeze's favorite receiver too, and it's good to see him back completely healthy. I wasn't ready to be on him last week, but now he's back, baby, and I'm very excited about that. He just gets into the end zone like a lot too, which is just great.
Yeah,
and then I can also see receptions. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. And then he also, while New Orleans runs their interesting, like kind of tricky offense in the red zone where they'll run rub route, they'll run a million different types of routes. He's got 5 inches on every single Tampa Bay cornerback. He's 6'3",
yep.
And then across the board, the Tampa Bay cornerbacks are 5'10". So he's got that size advantage in the red zone. He's looking at he's an eye over under, so his touchdown likelihood goes up. But then even if he doesn't score a touchdown, being the favorite receiver of a guy who loves to just sling the ball around in a game with a really high over under, he could have a 10 target, 9 reception game coming his way this week. So yeah, I like him a lot. He's probably one of my favorite mid-priced guys as well to plug in.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Next, right below that, Tyrell the Gazelle, another one of my premier plays this week, at Cleveland. So it's not as easy as a game, so I think it could be a little closer. San Diego does not travel well west to east. They just don't do it. Well, it is Cleveland, so I do like the matchup quite a bit. And what is he? He's 6.8 here on FanDuel. He really shit the bed last week for me. 9 targets, only 4 catches for 20 yards. But I think San Diego ran like the least amount of plays they did all year last week. So that was just bad. There's Julian Edelman, Mr. Targets, we're going to talk about, getting a lot of targets. 12, 15, 12, 11, 17, 9. You can play him all you want, but I don't think you necessarily have to. Because I think the Pats could just go up really early, or like really big on the Jets early, or just go up early and not have to use him. Although he is consideration right now, and as you mentioned, like Hopkins. What is there anyone below those guys you really like? Are you interested in the Devontae Adams, like Jarvis Landry, Kenny Britt? I'm interested in Michael Crabtree. I'll tell you that much. But who are you guys down there you like?
Below that, these guys are more or less for tournament flyers, or some of them are for DraftKings PPR. I mean, Allen Robinson meeting up, playing 96% of the snaps or whatever he played last week, meeting up with Blake Bortles, talking about how they need to get on the same page. Clearly didn't. So I think I don't care regardless how low they drop his price. I'm probably not going to be on him. For tournament flyer, I like you mentioned him a couple weeks ago and he got in the end zone. Dontrell Inman playing in the slot against one of the worst slot receivers in football, and Tramon Williams, or slot corners in football, and Tramon Williams. I like him. Let me check this out real quick. Cam Meredith, this guy, since Marquise Wilson went down, has been getting a lot of targets, but I think Alshon Jeffrey coming back is going to definitely deplete his value for us in this situation. I think Alshon Jeffrey actually.
Josh Norman is probably going to be shadowed by Josh Norman's shadowing Alshon Jeffrey probably. So I think that might be confirmed too.
Yeah, that's like a tricky situation to go through where you have like a top talent at wide receiver being shadowed by also a top talent at cornerback, and then you have a secondary wide receiver who's been getting a lot of targets. So it's just like it's kind of a log.
And significantly better matchups too, because Bashad Breeland is not good, and Quentin Dunbar is worse.
I think Meredith is probably a quality DraftKings tournament play. Maybe not as much on FanDuel. I think on DraftKings, if like with that full point PPR, he just is so valuable to you. I don't know. I don't really like too many of these really low price guys. I don't know if looked at him earlier. I don't know if I said his name. Robbie Anderson on DK is a guy who I don't mind this week. If he fits into the lineup, then he fits. If not, then I'm not gonna shift pieces around to try to get him in there. He's probably the best guy in my opinion at that price range. So I say we fill in our tight end position, then see how much we have to spend at wide receiver here.
All right, cool. I'm with that. So, we're just going to leave Michael Thomas and T.Y. Hilton in for FanDuel, and then leave that last one open. All right, cool. Because I like those. In DraftKings, it's going to be a little different build, but thinking FanDuel, it's pretty much these two. So now the question is, do we want to pay up for a Greg Olsen, Tyler Eifert, Delaney Walker pick, or do we go a little cheaper for Kyle Rudolph, Make America Great Again, Antonio Gates with touchdown incentive coming up for not even incentive, all-time record in touchdowns for passing Tony Gonzalez, I believe. I think he needs 2 to tie, 3 to pass. And then there's value that's really opened up with potentially Garrett Selleck at 4.8, pretty much being the only
along with
healthy
Vernon Davis.
Yeah, and Vernie Davis. Well, yeah. The question still remains on Jordan Reed, whether or not he's going to play or not, but it's not looking too good. Yeah. And he hasn't really practiced. So you've seen 2 targets last 2 weeks. Vernon Davis is the guy I was looking at. So I guess my player pool of people would be, my top end would be Greg Olsen. My mid-tier guys, I like Kyle Rudolph and Bray in cash. I don't think I can play Antonio Gates in cash. And then after that, it's Garrett Temple. Wow, I'm thinking NBA. Garrett Selleck and Vernon Davis.
I think we should probably try to get a share in cash of that Tampa Bay passing offense in this high over-under. There's just going to be so many pass attempts, presumably with it being in the Superdome. New Orleans is going to try to shoot the lights out, and then they're going to have to respond every single drive. So if we're fading the Mike Evans chalk, then I think we should probably Make America Great Again into our lineup.
It's incredible on DraftKings. He's only 3.9.
I have him plugged in on DraftKings right now.
It's absolutely insane that he's that price. That's a little ridiculous here. I mean, I guess all the tight ends are a little cheap, but I don't know.
They are significantly cheaper. They used to have Gronk priced up at $8K to make him almost unplayable, or use a wide receiver in your lineup.
Yeah, pretty much. So I guess the build on FanDuel, we're left with a little bit of money left. We can get up. We can pay for Jordy Nelson is really what it's telling us to do here. And I don't hate it, to be honest with you.
I kind of want to, I personally want to stay away from that a little bit with the Minnesota. Minnesota still rivalry has quality. Rivalry. Late in the season, Minnesota's trying to play spoiler, and then they still have some quality cornerbacks. They still have guys like Xavier Rhodes. Let me check out the matchup. Yeah, he's getting shadowed by Xavier Rhodes this week. So that's a little bit scarier to me. If we go down into our mid price range, then personally, I like Jordan Howard a little bit more. I think he's a safer play than Ajayi because he's not as touchdown dependent. And then you mentioned how that Washington run defense is just pitiful. And then Miami's offensive line issues make it a little bit questionable for me.
So we can bump up Ajayi to Howard. Yeah, I like that. I think Howard is a safer play, and I think Howard does have a little bit higher projection. I just think Ajayi may be my favorite play to, that might be under-owned at this point. If I'm the only guy that's talking about Ajayi, then, maybe I'm going to win all the monies this week. I haven't seen too much of him.
He could do some serious damage for you as well in a tournament. And even if we do that, then we can still fit Jordy Nelson if we really want him.
Yeah, if we really wanted to, we could. But is there any I don't really feel comfortable bumping up Michael Thomas to Alshon Jeffrey or Doug Baldwin or Brandon Cooks. I don't really want to bump up T.Y. Hilton to Julio Jones or Mike Evans. I'm really not that interested in doing that. Haven't we said it before? New Orleans just doesn't let Mike Evans do things.
Yeah.
Ever.
Exactly.
Never.
His career numbers are just 3 catches a game, that type of stuff.
Yeah, and it's that our consideration, I guess, now is, are we fading completely Tampa and we bump up to Greg Olsen?
Honestly, I think at this situation, it might just be something where if we have an excess amount, we we bump up our kicker. Honestly, like I don't really
You
know.
would bump
Like
up the kicker.
I don't really want to leave. Like we've discussed this a little bit before in our group chat. Like how much are we comfortable leaving on the table in this lineup? Like what do you think? How much are you comfortable leaving on?
I hate seeing over 500, but that's a bad thing, and I know that's a bad thing. And I try to spend it all, but if I can get, I usually am pretty good at picking my kickers, but even a little with a little bit left over on that, like I don't usually bump up the players. So I guess who do we want as our third receiver then in cash games? Do we want a Tyrell Williams, or a Julian Edelman? I don't think Hopkins is already in on DraftKings account, but I like Michael Crabtree like a lot. But that's like we're leaving like still a significant amount of value even at the top. It's 900. Like that's 900. I mean, at that point, do we bump up like a Tom Savage to someone? I don't think that can happen. Really, there's no one at 7K I really like.
Yeah, I'm just tweaking everything a little bit, and I saw something come out today that they're like it's increasingly unlikely that Jordan Reed plays. Let me do a quick search on that to see exactly what it was. I believe it was Adam Levitan had tweeted something regarding this. Just give me 1 second.
Yep. I want to look at the DraftKings lineup right now and see and plug in T.Y. Hilton.
All right, yeah. So it was a Fantasy Labs comment on how they're unsure and increasingly unlikely that he plays. And in that situation where he doesn't play, then it would be like a riskier move. But I think it'd be worth considering going from Brait, like completely fading the Tampa Bay air attack and go from Brait to Vernon Davis down quite a bit of money. And then that would let you enough money to go up to Julio Jones.
Oof, I don't know if I can
really high over under.
I don't know if I can
do like
Julio in cash. No, not in cash.
All right.
Do it in cash. I really can't. That's just something I can't swallow.
Gotcha.
Not with that toe injury and him taking time off. Like I could be totally wrong on that, but I am just not very interested in Julio in cash. Although this was the last time he dropped a 42 burger on everyone, 300 yards. It's really enticing.
I think with our 7.8 left, I think plugging in Jordy might be the best situation so that we don't leave a ton on the table. Because at this point, if we leave so much on the table where we go down like to an Alshon Jeffrey or Doug Baldwin, we're leaving 800 on the table. And at that point, you're betting that Jordy Nelson versus Doug Baldwin, that Doug Baldwin wins. And I think like Jordy Nelson might not have the greatest matchup, but Aaron Rodgers is just trying to drag them along to a playoff spot. And like his last 3 games have been against good, solid defensive teams. And he's just been like pretty much the cash game monster. Where like we've said it before about other guys, like Jordy Nelson since Halloween has been like last year Eric Decker, where he's getting 90 yards or a score in every single game on 9+ targets. So I think if we just spend all of our money at 7.8 with Jordy Nelson, that I think we have a solid looking lineup in that situation.
Yeah, and literally he hasn't disappointed in like the last like 7 weeks. He's getting you exactly what you need. You want 2 times value and more, and 1.5 times just about. But if you get like about double digits and across the board, you're usually looking pretty good. So our FanDuel lineup is situated here: Tom Savage, Sean McCoy, Jordan Howard, Michael Thomas, T.Y. Hilton, Jordy Nelson, Cameron Brait, a 4.5 kicker of your choice. I like Lambo and Aguayo as our 2. And that's I guess maybe no, that's it. Those are the 2 I like. And then the Pats defense, because for obvious reasons, you got the Jets coming to town. You got Bryce Petty potentially throwing the ball 50 times.
Yeah,
that's not a good. Sign me up, man. Sign me up. Everything else I'm not really super that interested in. At the top, maybe Seattle, but not really. I prefer the Pats. I think they're as good as it gets this week. For pick 6, lots of sacks and overall sloppiness. So let's punch that in for FanDuel. And then, all right, let's move over to the DraftKings here. We got Barkley, DJ, LaShawn McCoy, DeAndre. I think we're probably going to have to drop David Johnson is what I'm thinking here.
I've been gradually building throughout our discussions, and what I have ended up with right now, it's got a punt at defense, so it's probably not the most optimal thing. But it's got Barkley, McCoy, Johnson, Hopkins, Michael Thomas, Robbie Anderson, Cameron Brate, TJ Yeldon in the Jaguars defense. So like,
oh boy,
what we talked about how like TJ Yeldon at 3.8 on DraftKings is, and he's been like his last 3 weeks, he's seen double-digit points every single week. He's seen, you mentioned his targets, which are so much more valuable over here compared to FanDuel. And his snap share or percent of snaps has gone up significantly. And that's the reason why, like, you see his 3 points against Buffalo's 5 before that. That was when he was playing like 40% of the snaps, and now he's up around 75 plus. So I think that 3.8 is probably one of the better punt plays. And then with Robbie Anderson, I like the logic there is just he's gonna, like you mentioned how Bryce Petty's gonna have to throw the ball 50 times. He's probably gonna turn it over a lot. But as our boy Raz has told us many times, when he throws the ball, he throws it to Robbie Anderson more than anybody else. So if he's got to throw it 50 times, he's got to throw it to Robbie Anderson, like 8 or 9. If he catches 5 of those, that's 5 free points right there. And then plus his potential yardage. He's an athletic guy. He went to Temple. I got to watch him a lot last year. He's an athletic guy. He can do a lot after the catch. And then obviously the Michael Thomas play. And then it's 3.1 at defense. And I just plugged in, punted the Jaguars defense.
Yeah, I'm like looking around at the defenses in that area. I guess Houston makes this seems a little interesting. I think that's the only one that really stuck out to me, except as gross as it sounds, the 49ers just playing quarterback, playing defense against Jared Goff is kind of like a nice thing to do. I don't know if I can do that in cash. I think I'd prefer to just go with the Houston defense, home team, a little bit better defense significantly. AJ Green is coming back, which kind of, I don't know how healthy he's going to be, but the Bengals are done. Dalton is dead. We all know how my opinions on Andy Dalton too. So, so that confirms the lineup there. So let's rip through it one more time. Matt Barkley, David Johnson, LaShawn McCoy, Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, Robbie Anderson, Cameron Brate, TJ Yeldon, and the Texans defense on DraftKings. I like it. I'm not a huge DraftKings guy, as you guys know, so all these lineups always look weird to me no matter what, no matter how many times I've looked at them. But I do like it. And I guess the other way you could build lineups, if you did want to pay up at quarterback, you do have the option to, if you do like someone a little cheaper at running back on FanDuel. But I think we got 2 pretty solid lineups here. And our plan here is to review and recap these lineups with a little write-up afterwards to, show you guys how well they did. We are probably going to be playing these lineups here, pending any crazy injuries of some sort or crazy news that would, benefit my roster construction. Do you have any final words here, Ryan?
Just our boy Raz. He wasn't able to be on the show today, but he had one little call that Blake Bortles wins people money this weekend, especially on DraftKings. He's down at the same price. I believe he's $5K down there with the likes of Barkley and Savage. He's going to be the lowest owned of that group. And then Raz is a big tournament guy. So if, honestly, with the new head coach facing Tennessee at home, Tennessee's not a very good defense. Probably going to throw the ball some 50, 45 times, something around there. Last time against Tennessee, it went 33 for 54 with 3 scores and then 33 FanDuel or DraftKings points. That's a big day. So I think I'm going to plug in Raz's little comment, let him have the bragging rights when Bortles hits and wins somebody $1 million this weekend. Other than that, I think I touched on everything that I wanted to mention this week.
Yep, absolutely. So make sure you check us out online at settingtheedgedfs.com. Our Twitter accounts are A Paisano and The Great Zambino, and that's with an A if you don't know yet, and you're wrong. And our webpage's Twitter account, settingtheedge_. As NFL starts to decrease a little bit more, and NBA starts kicking up, we're gonna have a little bit more content for that coming out. And also stay tuned for volume 2 of my college football preview for the bowl games coming out soon. That's all from us. Salud, best of luck. I hope you win all the monies this Saturday, guys. See you.